Hello and welcome to yet another compilation of scary stories. Today, I'm going to present to you guys with a series written by Forward Crow 9291, titled I Agreed to House Sit for My Parents in My Childhood Home. It has 6 chapters and I'll be covering all of them in this video, so it's going to be a bit longer than usual. However, I will upload all 6 chapters individually and link each one of them in the description, just in case you do not have the time to listen to the entire series at once. With that said, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Do not forget to subscribe for more similar stories and share this with your friends, family, and fellow enthusiasts of the genre. Let's begin. I Agreed to House Sit for My Parents in My Childhood Home by Forward Crow 9291. Chapter 1. I may have made a huge mistake. Last Friday I arrived at my childhood home for the first time in 12 years. I'm supposed to stay another week, and I don't know that I am going to survive here that long. I don't have anything against my parents, actually I love them, they're awesome people, but I moved out of state for college and circumstances have just played out that my parents have visited me, or we have met at one of my siblings' houses. I have 3 siblings, 1 older brother, a younger sister, and my younger brother is the baby of the family. We all have moved around quite a bit, but my youngest 2 siblings have always lived near each other, so their houses have been the obvious meeting places for holidays and gatherings to save on the travel. My parents are retired now and travel a ton, making sure to visit each of us every year, well, aside from the past few years due to COVID. That's sort of how I ended up agreeing to house sit for a week for them. My sister and my elder brother arranged a Disney trip for their kids this week, and my younger brother and his wife decided to tag along. I was actually planning to go too, but my parents needed someone to watch the house if they were going to go. I know you're probably wondering why they wouldn't just hire someone or leave the house, but they have some special needs pets. They have always been the types to adopt senior dogs from the pound of take-in strays, even since childhood. When I was younger, we had a caretaker named Mr. Smiles, who as an adult I learned was really named Mr. Randall Schmidt, that would take care of our house and pets whenever we were traveling as a family, but he passed in the pandemic and my parents, devastated, didn't believe they could find anyone to watch the house. They haven't seen their kids, including me, in almost 3 years. They have a 2-year-old granddaughter they haven't even met in person yet. I had to be the hero and get them on that plane down to Florida. I should have known something was off when my dad outright refused. Just know, you haven't been here in 12 years. You don't know the animals, and they don't know you. Do you want hold on? He broke off, and I heard him talking to my mom, but couldn't hear her side of the conversation. It was muffled, like he was holding the phone to his chest. Yes, I would rather some stranger. He's our son. I know, but he hasn't been here in so long, he won't remember. And Randall knew. Okay, I know. We can try. And I'll call Brian in the morning so he's on the alert. You there, kid? He asked, now talking into the receiver. Yeah, Dad. Your mother and I have decided to give you a chance, but you're going to get into town a few days early so I can show you the ropes, and I am going to have your uncle come stay in the guest house in case you need help. I was starting to feel a bit offended that my goodwill was being weighed so heavily. I guess now I'd be offended if they hadn't tried to ward me off. Careful, Dad, you don't want to inflate my ego too much. Too late for that, he laughed into the phone. Are you sure, son? It isn't easy keeping this place together, and I was really hoping to have our family back together again. I'm sure there will be other chances for that, Dad. We'll see. I'll see you next month then. Love you, kid. And the line clicked off. We'll see? Was he sick? Was Mom? The way he said that made it sound like we would not all be together again. Looking back now, I think he knew I wasn't cut out for this. He knew that, Maybe the family will all be together again at my funeral. We'll see, guys. Maybe you can help me out here. This is a lot of exposition, but I think it is necessary to explain how I ended up in my dad's busted-up Silverado down the unfinished road to my childhood home. The place looked like a 19th century farmhouse, but my parents had designed it and had it built themselves just over 30 years ago. My dad had been in the tech industry since the hardware days, had gotten some employee stock at 2 different companies later acquired by IBM, and with those 2 payouts, he had become reasonably rich low millionaire. Ironically, my mother and he decided to take their tech money and go live on a literal farm with 43 acres of land and the 3-halves house they now call the guest house. They had built the main house a few years later, about 10 acres separated from the guest house with a 1-car wide dirt road between them. My dad still consulted at tech companies for extra money, but his day-to-day job had become taking care of the animals while my mom preferred gardening, though they did both together and with us frequently. I have to say, seeing my parents felt good, and took away a lot of the nerves that weird call with my dad had left marinating for the past month. We ate breakfast together at the house, caught up on the past few years, discussed the 15 pounds I've gained since last time I saw them, and then my dad brought me upstairs to my bedroom, my childhood bedroom that looked almost untouched since I had left, so I could unpack. Being back in that room, this room where I am now, was jarring, to say the least. No sooner had I walked in than the hair on my neck shot out in alarm. My spine tried to slither down my leg and ice cubes of sweat broke out on my face. My chest collapsed on itself and my vision lost a race with its point of focus. My father must have noticed this happening, as he looked at me from the intersection of concern and sadness. Being here didn't bring back all my memories, just the dread. I had flashes of the memories though. A rattling of my closet door so fierce, I had pushed all the furniture in the room against it just to see them shake just as fiercely. A small light under my bed seen from the wall mirror that had duplicated itself into a laughing pair of eyes. A small statue of a naked man with a smile like the Cheshire Cat, if you caught him in the light while he was looking at you. None of it made sense, but all of it made terror. I was about to scream when my dad started counting to 10, and around 7, I couldn't remember the panic of a few moments earlier. The room was just a room, and the nightmares were those of an imaginative youth. I had also forgotten my dad had that power. It felt like he could count to 10, and Satan himself would have repented and returned to heaven, fork-tailed between his legs. He had used that on me and my siblings like a magic trick all through our childhood, and I guess the old Pavlovian spell was still ingrained in me. You were always the most sensitive of the bunch as a kid, bud. You're a man now, he said, somehow reading my mind. You can use that old trick yourself, works on me too, but these days I have to get into the 40s. I smiled and set my stuff down. I'm more of a live out of a suitcase type than one to use the drawers and closets for a week. My training was a bit anticlimactic. 2 of their dogs have diabetes and need regular shots. All of them have special diets. The food is labeled with their names, they don't steal. The cats know how to feed themselves. Squirt some eye drops on Winky's bad eye, the one without the eyelid, every few hours. Most dogs, comically, had a pill case with the days of the week that older folks used to keep track of their pills. There were 7 dogs in all, for cats, a chicken coop that Uncle Brian would tend near the guest house, an aquarium, and a pair of frogs. The house rules got a bit weird. Look, I don't have the time to teach you everything, so stick to the basics. Take care of the animals, everything is written down and you can always call us to check if you need. Vet number is on the fridge, but none of them are on the verge of croaking except the frogs. My dad chuckled at his own joke. As for the house, stay away from the basement, no matter what you hear. Use your cell before you use the landline if possible. Brian knows you're out here, and if you can't reach him by phone, Use the signal in our bedroom for an emergency. Lock the doors and put the alarm on whenever you leave or go to sleep. Do not go outside at night. Actually, please just try to stay in your room from sundown to sunup. There's a mini fridge in there now, and the TV and everything is hooked up. Even got your old Spock's wired up in there. I opened my mouth to ask about the intense rules, and he said, I just said I don't have time to teach you everything. It's all up there already, or most of it. You'll know what to do if you need it. Oh, and in case you need reminding, stay out of my office and don't touch any of the books on the parents-only bookshelf. Rules from when we were kids. I was starting to feel pretty patronized, but the guy was my dad after all, and when he got like this we knew it best not to argue. I chalked it up to him trying to give me a hard time about not being home in a while. Until my parents left Sunday night, nothing extraordinary happened. Actually, I did notice that a branch must be hitting the house in the wind somewhere, and had a hard time sleeping. In my sleepy brain, it sounded like a steady tap 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 on a door. Yesterday was pretty normal too. I took care of the animals according to their schedule. It took me most of the day, but pretty much without event. I did end up going out to one of the old barns around dusk while looking for one of the cats, Periwinkle, I hadn't seen since noon. I heard a crash and yowling from inside the barn, but as I was about to open the door, Periwinkle meowed from right next to my foot and almost made me pee myself. I'm not sure how I didn't see him walking up to the barn, and I almost went to investigate the sound, but Periwinkle dashed off towards the house and, remembering my dad's advice about nighttime and the outdoors, followed him back. Halfway back I stopped when I heard something like a crunching step on dry leaves, weird for summer, and then as I started walking again, I heard what sounded like echoes of my squishy steps in the wet grass. I started walking faster and the echoes sped up too. I was almost at the house when I noticed the echoes were now faster than, and slightly preceding my own steps. I wasn't messing around, so I ran through the gate to the yard, slamming it behind me, jumped up the porch steps, threw the door open and locked it behind me. I noticed Periwinkle on one of the windowsills and looked out to see he was looking at an open gate. I grabbed the little guy and went upstairs to my room, locking the room door for good measure. I was collecting a little zoo in my room at this point, as I had taken to sleeping with some of the friendlier dogs before my parents even left. The diabetic dogs also stayed with me because I had to feed them at 5 a.m., and I was having a hard enough time waking up that early without having to track them down in a 7-bed 5-bath, 4,000 square feet house. Maybe the open gate had me spooked this morning and it altered my perspective today. Maybe my uncle is trying to mess with me. We've never been on the best terms, but today was kind of messed up. I woke up and ate breakfast, noticing the gate was closed. Rather than make me feel any better, this made me suspicious. I decided I would go visit my uncle and casually bring it up. My dad had given me a hard enough time about watching the house. I wasn't going to call him about it and prove his doubts were credible, even if they were. I completed my morning feeding and medicating of the animals and took off for the guest house on foot. I got there around noon and the summer heat had me sweating. There was no car in the drive, but I tried knocking anyway. No answer. I walked over to the chicken coop and saw they had been cared for this morning. Okay, he probably ran into town after feeding them. I didn't want to come back later, so slipped around the side door, found a spare key under a loose side panel on the house, and let myself in. My older brother was sitting in the kitchen and stood abruptly, alarmed. "What the hell, Phil, you can't just come in here like that," my brother said. "Me? What are you even doing here? You're supposed to be at Disney with the family." "Oh, I had to stay an extra couple days for a work thing. I'm flying out tonight," he replied. That seemed to make sense. He had been staying in the guest house with his family since shortly after COVID to help my parents with groceries and things like that. I had thought the whole family had taken off before I even arrived. It was weird I hadn't seen him. But wait, I thought your job was fully remote now. He muttered something I didn't catch, but seemed frustrated. Yeah, I had an interview though for a new position. We want to stay near mother and father, and my job may change its remote requirements soon. I guessed he hadn't wanted to talk about his interview in case it didn't pan out. Maybe that was why he was avoiding me. His use of mother and father came out weirdly robotic, but sometimes Jerry was weird like that. I brushed it off. "Where's Uncle Brian?" I asked. "Probably off drunk somewhere. I had to feed the chickens this morning for him." Huh, well that explained the chickens and lack of a car too, I guess. Jerry was probably an even better person to question. I wanted to ask him why Dad told me to stay inside after dark. Last night I heard something and I don't know, are there bears or something? The bears are afraid to come here, he said, monotone. What? Oh, he snapped as if coming out of a daydream. Father has little patience for bears and scares them off. You should not go out at night. Why? Why what? Why shouldn't I go outside at night? There could be bears. You just said. Father is not here. I was getting kind of creeped out. Jerry was weird, but this was like bad acid trip weird. I would just ask Brian if I saw him around. We had settled into sitting at the kitchen table after the initial confrontation, and I rose to excuse myself. Jerry clamped his hand on mine, unnaturally cold to the touch. I let out a half shout in surprise at the speed of his movement. He looked at me dead in the eyes, and I saw now that they were a little too dilated for the fluorescent light in the room. You could always check Father's office if you think he is hiding something. Okay, Jerry was on drugs or something. I pried his cold fingers off my hand and said, "That's not a bad idea. I should get back to the animals now." He just smiled at me and then returned to the position he had been when I walked in. Just sitting at the kitchen table staring at the wall. Weird. I left quickly. I did my rounds with the dogs and sat down to watch Netflix for a bit. I dozed off, and when I woke up it was dark. I had locked up earlier, but when I went to turn on the alarm I heard, "Warning, office window open." Nope. I hadn't set foot in that office, but I'm sure my dad would have left it locked. I went to check and felt very wrong walking into his office. Normal office, but had 2 walls with windows and a steel door. This room was not on the corner of the house, so the 2 windows threw me. I clicked on the lights and checked the window. That made sense, exterior, first. I opened the closed blinds and saw the window was locked, but the alarm sensor had fallen off. Phew, no break-in. I stuck the sensor back on and looked at my reflection in the illuminated light of the window. I freaked out seeing a shadow past the door frame behind me. Just a dog or something, I told myself. I turned around and clicked the lights off, deliberately avoiding that steel door and window. I went to close the door and heard a tap 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 on the steel door behind me. Curiosity got the better of me and I turned. What caught my attention wasn't the door. I had left the curtains open on the window, and with the light off and my reflection no longer visible, my face was still peeking in the window from outside, smiling a wide grin. I opened my mouth to scream and the reflection did too. Then he slammed his hands on the window and I slammed the door behind me. I heard him pounding. My chest seized up. I heard glass break and a scream of giddy laughter. I started to cry a bit. I heard my dad's voice. "You can use that old trick yourself." I started to count out loud with my eyes glued shut. 1. Another break as the glass was shattered completely. 2. The sound of crunching glass as something dragged itself through the window. 3. The alarm screaming as that thing harmonized a giddy squeal with it. 4. A thud on the ground as it flopped from the window. 5. Crunching as it squirmed across the floor, not walking but squirming. 6. Its breathing under the crack of the door. 7. A disgusting squelching and the sound of cracking bones as that thing straightened up on the other side of the door. 8. The quiet click of the latch as the doorknob turned. 9. The apotheosis of a door creak, a creak that hadn't been there when the door had opened for me a minute earlier, a creak that mocked me with the dread it shoved into my soul. 10. I whirled around a face. The open door of my dad's otherwise normal office. One window, and not the one I had just been looking out. I felt the relief I had felt in my room with my dad counting, but underscored by that dread still there. I heard my dad again say, "These days I have to get into the 40s. I called my sister, on my cell, when I got to my room to ask how things were going at Disney. She said they were great and she had really missed Mom and Dad and Jerry. Jerry, is there? I managed to get out only slightly choked. Been here since last week. You okay, Phil? Yeah, sorry I lied, scratching a weird rash on my hand. Am I going crazy, Reddit? I've been sitting here typing this with Periwinkle for the past few hours. How am I going to last another week if this is day 2? Please, any advice or experience with these things is helpful. Chapter 2. Now I'm having the strangest dreams. I somehow managed to get some sleep last night, but part of me wishes I hadn't. I'm not even sure I ever woke up. You know how when you hit snooze in the morning, you have more dreams? Or at least you remember the ones you have. Maybe this doesn't happen to everyone, but it does to me. Sleeping after the 5 a.m. feeds/shots for Ollie and Pork, the 2 diabetic dogs, gave me some extra dreams on Monday and Tuesday, but this morning was something else. The dreams started before that though. I was a kid again, looking up at a silver-haired man with a matching bushy mustache. His eyes were obscured by a pair of large, googly eyes one might find at a craft shop pasted atop what appeared to be swim goggles. A thin scarline started above his left eyebrow and burrowed under the goggles to emerge just north of the mustache before hiding itself again beneath the fuzz. He held clutched in his mouth a plastic pair of lips one might find in a potato head toy kit. They were frozen in an open-mouthed smile. His shiny silver hair pulled back into a ponytail that swept over his right shoulder to an equally ridiculous outfit. He wore a white lab coat with a flower not unlike a clown might have, the kind that shoots water, pinned to the chest pocket. His jeans were dusty and patched. His custom t-shirt visible through the drapes that were the sides of his lab coat bore an eerie, poorly done cartoon drawing of the man's face, with functioning googly eyes as well. Beneath the face were 2 words, his moniker. Mr. Smiles. It was unmistakably the same man from my youth, but the hair had been jet black when I was last this young. This was long after I had ever seen him in the suit. He had stopped wearing it with salt and pepper hair when Zeke, my youngest brother, had turned 12. Schmidt wasn't an attractive man, that scar had left him with a cloudy white eye to match his pale, blocky face. His real mouth was almost always in a scowl, even though I always remember him as cheerful. He and my parents had thought of the costume after my siblings, and I ran away from him screaming for the 3rd time. That's right, this horrifying getup was their solution to us being afraid of him. Like a clown, my dad had said when Schmidt had suggested it. The weirdest part about it was that it worked. As a kid, I loved playing with Mr. Smiles. He felt more like a cartoon character or imaginary friend than adult. As an adult, looking at him in this dream, he looked more like a twisted nightmare. In this situation, he ended up being the latter. Those plastic eyes had to obscure at least half his real vision, which wasn't much to begin with, but somehow he was staring directly at me. When his voice came, it was like Mickey Mouse had a loose gag in his mouth. "All right, kiddo. Mr. Smiles has to go for today, time to pack up." It must have taken a tremendous amount of effort to get that sentence out. I continued playing with some blocks on the ground as if I hadn't heard him. "Okay, Ruthie, Mr. Smiles says we have to wrap it up," he said a little less cheerfully. He came over and put his hand on my shoulder. I looked up at him. I had a googly eye. The googly eyes somehow froze in shock. He dropped the plastic lips from his mouth. Above his right eye, I saw a red line start to form, a wet seam in his skin. His mouth hung open, but he didn't scream. The line burrowed under his goggles and down to the corner of his gaping mouth, turning his mustache pink. I turned back to my blocks and heard a thud behind me. After a while, I got bored and gathered my blocks up to bring them back to my room. I turned and stepped over Mr. Smiles, now smiling up past his eyes, and went back to my room upstairs. Only I didn't stop in my room. I walked into my closet, pulled the clothes apart to find a door, opened it, and walked down 2 flights of stairs. There was another door with a placard next to it that said Philip. I went inside and laid down in my bed. I rolled to my side and smiled at my dad, looking at me anxiously through a plexiglass wall. Then my alarm went off. I patted my nightstand to find my phone, squinted my eyes open, and pressed the big green button to stop the alarm. Except that button was normally red. I squinted again and saw I had accepted a call from Mom. It was 4:40 a.m., 5 minutes before my alarm was set to go off. "Ugh. Hello? Can you hear me?" My mom said on the line, a bit too loud for my awakening ear. "Yes, Mom. What the heck are you doing calling me this early?" "Well, your father ran out to get us some coffees and I wanted to call you while he was out. He thinks I'm being paranoid. I figured I could catch you before you fed the dogs." "Oh, okay. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, great. You know that feeling when you're not sure if you turn the oven off, or lock the front door, but it's too late to go back and check?" "Yeah. Well, I guess I'm calling to make sure the oven is off. Are you okay? Is everything okay?" I wanted to funnel off everything that had happened, but I didn't want her to panic, and I didn't know what was in my head or not. There was one thing that was actionable. I decided to ask. "Actually, Mom, I wanted to ask about Dash." "It's the mirrors, isn't it?" "It's okay, just look away when they start to do that." I glanced at the mirror on my wall. What the hell was she dropping on me now? "What?" "No, Mom. It's about Jerry." Thick silence. "Jerry is here. You know that?" Her voice oddly curt. "Well, yeah, Sarah told me yesterday, but Dash. Did you go into your father's office? The basement? You know you're not supposed to dash." "No, Mom, just listen please. I talked to him in the guest house yesterday, but he was being weird." "The guest house? Was your uncle with him?" "No, he said Brian must be off drunk or something." "Drunk? Brian has been sober 5 years now. Look, your father wouldn't want me to talk about this. We agreed it would only make you more likely to explore." This last word sounded like a euphemism. "I don't have a ton of time before he gets back, so I need to know quickly, what was weird about him?" He was just kind of staring at the wall until I got in the house. His movement was a bit jerky, like he didn't know how heavy his arms were. He kept calling you and Dad mother and father. I think he was talking about bears. Bears? What does that have to? Never mind. Look, I'm not 100% sure, but I'll give you 3 things to try if you see him again. We need to figure out which of our Jeremiahs is the right 1-inch. I hadn't really considered my Jerry was the real one after the strange behavior, but that got me thinking. I suppose my Jerry could be the real one, messed up in the head somehow, and my family, especially his wife and kids, was in danger. First, call him by his full name. If that doesn't change his behavior at all, try saying stand down. Key 7884. If that doesn't work, say Mr. Smiles is very angry with you. Go to your room and think what you've done. With any of these, try your best to channel your dad's voice and authority. Actually, you should go to our room and see if anything of his fits you. Thims around there will respect you a bit more if they think you're him, or at least see the connection. Things? What did my mom know she wasn't telling me? Mom, how do you know any of this will work? What things? From my mom's speaker phone I heard the robotic clicking of a hotel lock as the key card gets inserted. I have to go, I've said too much. I'll call later. Not a word to Dad. I love you, stay safe. Oh, and don't let Jerry touch you. The beep of my mom doing off the call. Then, as the alarm went off while I still held it next to my ear. I fed the dogs and got to sleep around 5:30 a.m. for another few hours, but the dreams kicked back up. I woke up in my room. It was probably 7 a.m., but my closet door was ajar. I got up and opened it the rest of the way to see another open door leading to steps. I walked down the steps and saw the placard with my name from my dream. I creaked the door open and saw a bed and some dusty children's toys, my dusty children's toys. I looked around to see a few more beds divided by plexiglass walls. I turned back to go back upstairs. Jerry smirked at me from behind the door and slammed it shut. I woke up in my room. It was probably 7 a.m., but my closet door was half open. I got up and opened it the rest of the way to see another open door leading to steps. This time as I walked down, I could hear what sounded like ice cream truck music playing. No, it was more like Jack in the Box music. All around the cobbler's bench. I descended the steps and noticed a mirror ran the length of it this time. The monkey chased the weasel. I swore something was off about my reflection in the mirror, but every time I looked it was fine. The preacher kissed the cobbler's wife. I reached the bottom of the stairs. The music was roaring at triple speed. I pulled the door open. Pop goes the weasel. I stood facing a mirror, still standing at the threshold of my closet in my room. The music had cut off abruptly and my reflection would have stood staring at me, but it had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. No face at all. I tried to gasp, but I couldn't move my lips. I couldn't breathe. I touched my hand to my face and found nothing there. No mouth, no nose. I touched where my eyes should be and it darkened my vision. A laughter rang out from somewhere, but I had no ears to hear it. I noticed my chest rising and falling in rhythm. I was laughing. I woke up in my room. It was probably 7 a.m., but my closet door was wide open. I got up and walked to it to see another door, but this time, Mr. Smiles stood in it. 2 grotesque scars pulled from the sides of his lips up over and past his eyes. He wore his silly outfit, but not his goggles, not his plastic smile. His googly eyes were staring at me directly from his sockets. Do you want to play Philly? Nobody plays with Mr. Smiles anymore. His high-pitched voice still muffled, his mouth still not moving as he said the words. I slammed the closet door. I woke up in my room. It was probably 7 a.m., to the sound of a door slamming. My closet was shut. I laid there for a few minutes, fearing I was still caught in the loop. I got my courage up, walked over to the door, and opened it. It was just a closet, no door on the back, no steps, no zombie clown. Thank God. I tried to have a semblance of a good morning, sorting out the nightmares from reality. My call history showed my mom calling. My Reddit post documented last night's events. After I ate breakfast and did the dog's morning routine. I decided I needed to arm myself. Something was running around pretending to be my brother, either in Florida or in the guest house. I grabbed an iron poker from one of the fireplaces, a Costco-sized box of salt from the pantry, and set off to sweep the house. I salted the inside of the door to my dad's office and did the classic sweep the shower curtain away to catch the burglar moving the 3 bathrooms with shower curtains. I made sure every single door in the house was shut. I've done this as long as I can remember when I got scared home alone, even in my dorm and apartments. My logic is that I can hear someone open and close a door, I can see if a door is left open, and then at least I know if I'm not actually alone. I stopped in my parents' room and put on some of my dad's clothes like my mom had said. I also realized that carrying around a poker is kind of awkward. I took a trip to my dad's workshop in one of the barns. I found his tool belt and an iron hammer his dad had passed down to him. I took a detour to the kitchen to snag a 2-pronged meat fork from my mom's antique silver set and tucked it into the belt. I was ready to confront my brother. I found him where I left him yesterday, sitting in the guest house kitchen trying to burn holes in the wall with his eyes. Fortunately for me, he was failing. He looked like he hadn't moved, but when I walked in the door, he jerked upright and said, "Phil, you can't just barge in here like that." To satisfy my curiosity, I asked Jerry, "Aren't you supposed to be in Disney? Where's Uncle Brian?" He stammered out, "I had a work thing, I'm going to join them tonight." Brian is probably off drunk somewhere repeating a version of yesterday's responses like he didn't remember the conversation. I tried option 1. "Everyone seems to think you're in Florida, Jeremiah Daniel." I didn't need to try the other options. My brother, I am pretty sure now he is my brother, collapsed on the ground and gasped for air like he had been drowning. He started sobbing and dry heaved for a minute. I didn't really know what to do. This was a pretty strong reaction to his name. I went to help him and heard, "Don't let Jerry touch you." I don't know if that still applies or not, but tried to play it safe, unconsciously scratching at my swollen wrist. Philosophy Philip Stephen. Thank you. I felt a weird tingle when he said my name. My head felt like it cleared up a bit, and I noticed for the first time that I had had a headache since this morning. "Are you okay? What happened?" I haven't been myself. "Do you have any food?" "I haven't eaten since Mom and Dad left." "What is it, Tuesday?" he said. "Wednesday. I have some frozen dinners at the house, mostly what I'm living off of this weekend, in general, but I didn't want to mention that." Damn. Okay, let's go to the house. We walked back mostly in an awkward silence, neither of us knowing how to break it. I let him eat 3 of my frozen dinners standing up, going to have to go buy more at some point, I guess. He didn't even wait for me to microwave the first one, which was kind of disgusting to watch. He sucked on a frozen block of mac and cheese like a popsicle. "So, what happened to you?" I finally asked. "You don't know? But you knew how to set me straight," he said. "Mom told me. She thinks you're down in Florida with them." "Right. That's a problem. I'll need to borrow your cell so I can call Sarah and Zeke." "What happened to yours? And can't you use the landline? Also, Sarah and Zeke? What about your wife? What about Mom?" "I suspect my cell is in Florida. I suspect Mom knew I was here since you said my name before trying any other options. If I let Christine know, she'll give it away somehow and then they'll really be in trouble. Here's what we're going to do. You call Sarah and say you want to say hi to everyone. Ask who is around. Try to get her on the phone by herself and then I will talk to her, get her to talk to Zeke, and get a plan together. Then, oh hell, then I need to go get Brian. Hurry up, questions later. We only have about 4 hours until nightfall." I obliged and dialed my sister. She answered and put me on speaker. I heard her announce it was me and everyone yelled hello. "Hey Sarah, I'm putting a surprise together for Mom and Dad. I know you're at the park, but it will just take a second. Can you take me off speaker, please?" She did. I put my own phone on speaker and set it on the table. "Sarah Elizabeth," Jerry said into the phone, "try not to react strongly and don't say my name." "Okay, wow, that's a big surprise," she said. "That Jerry isn't me. I don't know if Mom and Dad are themselves either, so to speak. I need you to get him away from Christine and the kids tonight. I'm going to try to get Zeke to help get them somewhere safe. Can you do it? Yes or no?" "Yes, that's a great idea," she said with enthusiasm. "Let me put him on." "Hey Phil. What's going on?" Zeke spoke into the phone now. "Ezekiel Elias," I said, "someone needs to talk to you and you need to stay calm. That isn't Jerry. Sarah is going to distract him tonight somehow. Don't trust anyone else. I need you to get Christine and the kids safe." "You're joking, I can't believe that," he said, paused, and tried to save face with the "You have never been the type for surprises, Phil. I'll help however I can." "Okay Zeke. I need you to give fake Jerry the phone. It will look weird if we don't include him." I was stunned. It made perfect sense, but I hadn't thought it out. I had to come up with a lie in a few seconds or everyone was at risk. "Philip?" The voice, clearly Jerry, said on the phone. "Is everything okay?" I glanced at the brothers standing across the table from me and had a second of doubt. How sure am I that this Jerry is real? Yeah, I just wanted to let you know I'm planning a surprise party for Mom and Dad when they get back. Asking the siblings if they can Zelle me $20 for it." "Sure Phil, I'm sure Mommy and Daddy will love that. Be safe out there." I said my goodbyes and let out a sigh. "Thank you, philosophy. You stay here and take care of the animals. I'll go get Brian. If I'm lucky we can be back tonight." I tried to stop him and get some answers, but he shushed me and reiterated he needed to go get Brian before it was too late. After he left, I didn't know if he meant the time of day, or something worse. I haven't seen Jerry again tonight, but I don't think he would come to the main house after dark. One more weird thing happened I'll include here, but I've had a long day and am going to try to get some rest after that. When I finished with the dogs, I was sitting eating dinner in the living room and the phone in the kitchen went off the landline. I answered and my mom said, "That isn't Jerry, it's an imposter." "I think it's him, Mom, he seems normal. He's trying to get you to lower your guard. When he comes back, whack him. Whack him in the head with that hammer in your belt until he doesn't look like your brother anymore." I hung up and called my mom on my cell. "Hey Mom, sorry, we just got disconnected." What? "You called me on the landline and it cut off, so I'm calling you here." "I called you." "Right. Phil, I can't really talk right now. I'll call you in the morning to see how things are. I love you. Good night." Chapter 3. I don't know what's real anymore. My dreams weren't as awful last night. Before I woke for the 5 a.m. feeding, I only remember one, and even that one is fuzzy. I was a kid again and playing with Mr. Smiles, but this time his age was right. He had shorter, jet black hair still swept back into a sort of spiky puff. He still wore his odd outfit, but the lab coat was bright white, almost new. I don't remember much of the dream, but I remember the end. Mr. Smiles sat down next to me and sighed. He pulled his goggles up to his forehead and tucked the plastic smile into his lab coat pocket. He looked at me with his one good eye, googly eyes still jiggling on his forehead, and his mouth strained into the closest thing to a smile I think I had ever seen on his face, even though the corners of his mouth were the only part of his face smiling. "You know I love you kids. I did everything I could for you. I'll keep doing that as long as I can." The high-pitched Mickey Mouse voice was gone now, his normal, raspy voice taking its place. It was a voice I was used to hearing him use with my dad, but never me. Even as an adult, it was always a funny voice, but not always Mickey. I think I saw a tear quivering in the corner of his good eye, and he leaned over to ruffle my hair and kiss my forehead. I woke up to my alarm actually feeling at peace. Mr. Smiles was terrifying in his own way, but he was always fun and he always looked out for us. I was a wreck when my parents told me he passed, but even more so that I couldn't get to his funeral due to the pandemic. I can only imagine how my dad felt. Smiles was a bit older, but my dad had known him since before any of us were born. They were best friends in a way. My warm fuzzy feeling didn't last. I got up to feed the dogs, and while Ollie was asleep on the foot of my bed, Pork was nowhere to be seen. My bedroom door was ajar. So was the closet. I prepared myself to be thrown back into the cycle of false awakenings and nightmares that had spun me around yesterday. I opened the closet. It was a normal closet, no secret doors, no ghost clowns, no mirrors. I walked into the hall outside my bedroom and thought for a second my brother must have gotten back in the middle of the night. The door to his childhood room was across the hall from mine, and it was slightly open too. Then I looked around and turned back into my room. Every door in the hallway was slightly ajar. I had closed every door in the house the day before. This was like someone was toying with me. Nobody plays with Mr. Smiles anymore. Rang through my head. I wasn't about to go around the house unarmed, so I grabbed my tool belt and changed back into my dad's outfit from yesterday. It was a bit musty and I reminded myself to go collect a few outfits from his room later today. I decided that for now, I would just close the doors as I passed them and would research the house when it was light out. The priority was finding Pork and getting her food and insulin. I went back out of my room and called Pork's name. No response. I closed my brother's door. Grabbing the handle was oddly difficult. I realized my wrist was still puffy. I turned left and walked past the stairway to close the door to my parents' room. I went back down the stairs, leaving the other half of the upstairs rooms open. I would get them on my way back up. I got to the kitchen and closed the pantry. I was glad at first to see the exterior doors and windows shut. The alarm was still armed. Then I realized that meant whoever decided to open the doors was still in the house. I felt like the baby bear coming home to discover someone ate my porridge and vandalized my furniture. Two paths led out of the kitchen. Well, but I wasn't going outside and I had just come down the stairs. I went through the arch to the dining room on the left. Fortunately, there were very few interior doors downstairs. The house was an open concept, but it opted for rustic, wood-framed arches with little carvings. I chose the left side because it was the fastest way to the living room. The dogs had big beds in one half of the living room, and if Pork wasn't in with me, she would probably be in her bed there. I called out her name again and saw one of the cats dart across the arch in front of me. I walked into the living room and there were plenty of dozing dogs, but none of them Pork. Then I heard some muffled barking. "Pork?" I called. "Pork?" came her response. I traced the sound to a closed door on the back wall of the room. I guess not all the doors were open. It was my dad's office. I pulled out my hammer and opened the door. Pork barked at me again, alone in the room. "Come on, girl," I said. She stood on the other side of my salt line and whimpered at me. I noticed the line was intact, but it looked like it had been broken and hastily pushed back together again. The room was oddly 5 degrees warmer than the rest of the house. "Pork. Time to eat, let's go." I patted my thigh and turned slightly to go. She whimpered at me. I tucked my hammer back into the belt and walked into the room to carry her out. My back already hurt at the thought. She was a bulldog mix and must have been 80 pounds. She recoiled from me as I bent over and growled. I almost tripped, and then as I shifted my right foot to keep my balance, I felt a sting of pain. I overcorrected and threw myself back, falling on my ass with a thud in the doorway. Pork borked again cheerfully and trotted out of the room past me. I examined my foot and found a shard of glass the size of my pinky caught in the soft flesh of my foot's arch. I plucked it out and looked for something to staunch the bleeding. There was a small towel on the corner of my dad's desk that looked like he used it to erase his whiteboard, due to the black smudges littering it. Not super hygienic, but better than leaving bloody footprints everywhere. I grabbed it and sat in his chair to tie it around my foot. While I was sitting there, I glanced at his desktop and noticed a handheld mirror. Weird. I picked up the mirror and examined myself in it, half expecting to see myself without a face again. Maybe this whole thing was a dream after all. My face was normal, but as I looked into it, I noticed a broken window on the wall behind me. I spun around to look, but it was still just a solid wall. Maybe this is what my mom was talking about with the mirrors? I didn't want to think about it anymore. I put the mirror back down and left the room, limping. Before I closed the door, I realized I had broken my salt line when I fell, and quickly pushed it back into a solid line. It took me a good 10 minutes to get back up to my room, where Pork was waiting with Ollie. I fed the dogs and went back to sleep. I wasn't even scared at this point, just so tired. I woke up around 8 a.m. and went about my morning routine. Some of you might be thinking that this many dogs with special needs would be too much to handle. Having not lived at home a while, I can understand that mindset, but when I got here, I was actually surprised to see so few animals. When I was younger, me and my siblings would each have 2 or 3 pets of our own at any given time. My parents usually had more than all of our pets put together. They had sheep, lizards, dogs, cats, rodents, fish, birds, you name it. For a time, we even hosted 3 wolf pups. My parents didn't care what types of animals they had, only the conditions under which they got them. My parents' rules were that the animals couldn't be from pet stores or breeders, only some sort of rescue, and that anything wild that could and should return to the wild would eventually do so. We had to follow those rules for our pets, but they took it a step further and looked for the animals most at risk. The dogs they picked were from kill shelters, with medical conditions, or advanced age, or aspects of their appearance that made them less desirable for most people. Most of our dogs couldn't keep their tongues in their mouths due to removed, decayed teeth. My dad adopted dozens of pit bulls rescued from dog fighters and rehabilitated them, before finding them permanent homes. In most cases, those dogs did better in a home with 1 or 2 other dogs at most. Our house was a bit much, and the pits were kept somewhat isolated from our other pets while they were in rehab. The sheep were bought when a meat farm was in financial straits, and we only ever used them for wool. My mom would knit sweaters as Christmas gifts. My dad found the wolf pups when he was out hiking late one autumn. He heard them whimpering and howling from a few yards off the path and sat in the cold for 5 hours waiting for their mother to return. Then he went and scooped them up and brought them home. We were all excited, of course, when they came back. We mostly weren't allowed near them, so my youngest brother, Zeke, snuck into the barn they slept in one night the following autumn to play with them. One of them bit his pinky off, and the barn got a padlock on it the next morning. I remember my dad sitting us down to talk after that. Zeke was so mad and called the wolves all sorts of names. He had landed on monsters at some point, and my dad flushed, calling all of us to sit down. Just because something is dangerous doesn't mean it is evil. Just because you don't think the same way as it, doesn't make it a monster. He started that mentality is why your mother and I do what we do. So many people see a pit bull and see a scary monster. So many people would kill. He tapered off and took a breath. Continuing more calmly, so many people get scared and would rather do a creature harm than try to understand it, to help it. The truth is, those creatures are often just as afraid of us. He stopped and turned to Zeke. So no, Zeke, I won't go kill those wolves to make you happy, same as I wouldn't kill you to make someone else happy. They're almost strong enough, and we'll release them come spring. My dad kept good on his word and brought them back to the same area he had found them, hoping they would find their pack. As I was going about my morning routine, I thought about all those animals, and wondered why my parents had so few now comparatively. My thoughts ran back to my initial call with my dad, and I began to wonder again if they were sick or something. After I finished, I tried calling Sarah and Zeke. Neither of them answered, but they probably were at the park by now and wouldn't want to draw suspicion. Although I imagine Christine and the kids missing would have drawn enough. I was worried for them. Jerry still wasn't back, so I took the opportunity to do some research on the old internet. Someone had suggested I look into the history of the land. I couldn't find anything before that. No strange disappearance, no murders, no Native American burial grounds. In Western Virginia, not West Virginia, I figured maybe even a Civil War battle. The closest one was 40 miles away. The prior owners were farmers who moved to Florida to retire before my parents bought the place. Nothing weird there. I googled my dad and got nothing, just some of those "there are 4 Pauls in your area" ads by background check sites. On a whim, I decided to Google Mr. Smiles, Randall Schmidt, Virginia obituary. I doubt the former would have gotten me anything. I was going to read his obituary and see if I could find anything out there, but I couldn't find one. I checked the local papers and nothing. I even scanned through 2 months' worth of obits from around the time he had died. Nothing. I don't know what made me do it, but I searched for Randall Schmidt missing. Police abandoned search for local man after finding car in Roanoke. Mr. Randall Schmidt was reported missing last month by longtime friend and local celebrity, Paul Wilkins. Wilkins says he last saw Schmidt 2 weeks before his reported disappearance. He grew concerned when the 73-year-old man stopped answering his calls and didn't show up for a weekly visit. The article went on, but ended by saying police had fished Schmidt's car out of the Roanoke River and suspected he had drowned and been carried downstream. My dad had told me he was dead, and that they had buried him in the family cemetery. That's hard to do if his corpse is floating down to Albemarle Sound. The cemetery is on the property. The afternoon had sped by while I investigated, and it was almost 3 p.m. My family would still be at the parks. I debated taking a trip out to the cemetery, but before I could make up my mind, Jerry was knocking on the door. I hesitated a minute and then opened the door with a, "Hey there, Jeremiah Daniel." Yes. Still me, Philip Stephen. He sounded tired. "Did you find Brian?" "Yeah, but I had to get him to a hospital." "Oh, he'll be fine, don't worry." Wish I would have gotten out there sooner. "Out? Where? How did you know where he was?" "Look, I didn't put him there if you're wondering. There are just only so many places he could have been." "I'll explain, but I need a nap." He sniffed the air. "And we could both use a shower," he chuckled. I wasn't going to argue, so he took one of the downstairs bathrooms and I took my parents' bathroom. As I changed, the mirror from my dad's office fell on the ground, maybe from a pocket. I could have sworn I left it on the desk. I grabbed some of my dad's clothes and tossed them in my room. Jerry was waiting for me in the kitchen. The hell is that line of salt doing in Dad's office? And who broke the observation window? I was caught so off guard. 1,000 ideas started swimming in my head. No, don't get all anxious on me. I can feel it in the air. Just breathe. Salt. Window. What happened? I tried my best to calm down and reiterate the events of my first post. Mirror me, the window, the salt line. I even threw in the glass shard, pork, and the mirror from Dad's desk. I was a bit wary of Jerry, but I figured if he was the thing tormenting me, I wouldn't be giving him any extra information. You saw, yourself? Weird. I figured Ruthie was in Florida. Who? Dad should really be the one to talk to you about all this. I don't think I am the right person. I was getting mad now. Jerry, you know my least favorite part of the scary story? The part where someone withholds crucial knowledge for some no reason and it gets everyone killed. Talk. He looked just as mad. I said it's not my job. If you wanted to know, you should have come home sometime in the past 12 freaking years, you entitled jerk. When he stopped talking, he almost looked confused instead of mad. That threw me off guard. Phil, I think we need to settle down. Look, I can explain some stuff, but Dad will do it better. I think. Maybe I can stay in a guest house and you can read some of the papers from the off-limits shelf. I ought to be far enough away then to be outside the area of effect. It was a word salad to me and I was still frustrated, but I heard that he was going to talk to me, and he reminded me about that off-limits bookshelf. I could start getting some answers at least. Okay, tell me what you know. I know I need to get down to the basement and see if everything is okay. I need you to. He glanced at my tool belt. Why are you carrying around a hammer and a carving fork? Iron and silver. You know, like the stories say. I laughed, but he tensed. Phil, can you put the hammer on the counter while we talk? That made me want to do exactly anything but put the hammer on the counter. Why? I think some of what we're going to talk about might bother you, and I don't want you to be rash. Okay, so maybe this wasn't Jerry, but he was definitely afraid of the hammer. I didn't want to give up my advantage. I'm not going to assault you with a hammer, Jerry. As long as you're really Jerry, I thought. Look, I know this is putting you on edge, but I have to insist you put down the hammer. That's the deal. Hammer or answers, what do you want? Damn. The answers were more important right then. I set the hammer down and backed away. I could maybe get to it in a scuffle. I need you to break the salt line. I can't do it. Hammer, please? I glanced at it and he interrupted. It's not what you think. I could cross it, but you wouldn't like what would happen after that. Was he threatening me? Why the vague comments? Stop. I can feel you getting ready to go for the hammer over there. Look, your wrist. Let me fix it. Show of good faith. I looked at my wrist where he had grabbed me the other day. Green pus drooled from a swollen blob. Another day or two and you're going to have to amputate. I felt like I was in control a few minutes earlier. Now I had no hammer and an arm on the chopping block. I held it out. He touched a finger to the blob, and I felt a cooling sensation. There. It'll take a bit to get back to normal, but you won't die. Why did you do that to me? I snapped. I didn't mean to. It was taking all my focus just to keep myself stuck in that chair. I wasn't in control, not fully. If I have to cross that salt line or you smash me with that thing, he nodded at the hammer, I won't be in control at all. What are you? I'm your brother. I stared at him. I know you think I'm a monster or something, but I've always been this way. At least as long as you've been alive. Cut the crap, Jerry. I'm a human ghost possessing something more dangerous. Possessing an absolute Looney Tune is more like it. Look, I know it's crazy, but it's just because you don't remember. Mom and Dad wanted you to have a normal life. And so they did what? Erased my memories? Come on, Jerry, this is crazy. No, your memories are there, you just can't access them, just like you can't see the broken window without looking in a mirror. It's there, Phil, you just can't see it. I wanted to reject what he was saying, but it made sense. I stepped on a shard of glass, that wasn't in my head. Say I believe you. What next? I need to go check the basement, so I need you to break the salt line. The door to the basement is in Dad's office, but I guess you can't see that either. The steel door. What is in the basement? Wolf cubs, he said. I think I need to come with you. You don't have to, Phil, this is all new to you. I have to, but who is Ruth? One of the wolf cubs? Yes and no. She's our older sister. We don't have a. I couldn't finish the sentence. His eyes were looking at me with such deep pain, and for a minute, I felt it too. She made me like this, he said. We made a plan to take a nap and then head down to the basement. I fed the dogs and locked up the house. Before we went to sleep, I caught my brother in the hall. I feel bad I didn't ask this earlier, but what happened to Brian? Mild concussion and dehydration, he may have an ankle sprain. He'll be fine, but it could have been much worse. How did you know where he was? He was in a holding cell in the center of the property. I was supposed to add him to the security system's access list, but I was indisposed. He must have gotten trapped there when Mom and Dad armed the system. The alarm system? That doesn't make sense. You think Dad only has an alarm system with all these wolf cubs running around? He smirked. We parted and took our naps. So as I write this, I'm about to go down to the basement with my either crazy or supernatural brother, or both, and maybe meet my long-lost sister. I didn't sign up for this, but I think I have to do this if I am going to remember. Wish me luck, Reddit. Hopefully I'll update tomorrow. Chapter 4. My memories are finally returning. I woke up in a bit of a daze after my nap last night. I wrapped up my account of the day and copied it into a Reddit post, and completely messed it up in the process. I went downstairs to find Jerry cooking breakfast in the kitchen. It's 1 a.m., why are you making breakfast? Only thing I've eaten since Sunday are those frozen dinners and a McChicken I grabbed on the way back from the hospital. I need some energy. He sat 2 plates down on the table. Come on and eat. How are you feeling about everything? He asked me after we had taken a few bites. Still confused, still not really able to accept what you said yesterday. I thought a bit while I was cooking. Dad should really tell you most of the story, but we don't have that luxury. If you think you can keep it together, I'd like to give you an idea of what I think is going on. I felt relief wash over me. Jerry had given me some answers last night, but I had only wound up with more questions. Jerry smiled and let out a laugh. I'll take that as an agreement then. Better you know before we go downstairs anyway. He took a swig of coffee. All right then. Where do I begin? Ruth, probably. Mom and Dad had been wanting kids long before we came around. I'm not sure of the circumstance, but I know that when Dad found Ruth, she was in danger. Ruth wasn't, isn't, normal. You may be familiar with some folk tales about shapeshifters, changelings, mimics, the Headley Cow. That partially covers her abilities. Dad told me he's been looking for years, and the closest things he's found are stories about Greco-Roman gods and a 13th century folktale from the Black Forest about something it called a Fleischbildhauer. That loosely translates into a flesh sculptor. Now that name is terrifying, but just about covers what Ruth can do. She not only can shapeshift herself, she can change other organic matter or rip it apart for that matter. That manuscript was recovered in an abandoned village about 200 years after it's dated. The story is a bit long-winded, but basically it goes like this. A strange woman moves to town. Strange things start happening shortly afterwards. They start out fairly normal, like valuables going missing or people going missing in the woods. Things escalate into people growling like wolves and going feral, an oak tree appearing overnight in the middle of a missing person's house, and culminating with a rather grotesque description of one of the town council members mostly turning into a cloud of flower petals. Well, as per the tradition of the era, the woman was branded a witch and the council was organizing a raid to take place on the night the manuscript was apparently written. The manuscript would serve as a record of her crimes. As a footnote, it mentions that one of the local children had claimed that he was encouraged to go up to her house as a game, and he witnessed her turn into a human from the shape of a squirrel. He stated he witnessed one of his less fortunate friends get turned into a pig. The pig boy in question had been missing for a few weeks, and this served as proof enough to convict the woman. The mention of a flesh sculptor is only used in the boy's account. An addendum is added by the soldiers who found the town 200 years later, stating the town was abandoned, but there was a tree that appeared older than the others growing straight through one of the houses. There was a field of blood-red roses growing outside the house the manuscript described as belonging to the witch. The addendum references some other similar documents from the same time and region, but Dad could never find what happened to them. Whoever the addendum was addressing seemed to have been looking for information on the topic. Whatever she is, they seem to either be extremely rare or extremely good at covering their tracks, which isn't too hard to imagine. Dad thinks it's a combination of both. I don't understand all of the science, but he's run some simulations based on Ruth's growth rate. Those, combined with his best guesses at tracing the woman mentioned in the manuscript through time, seem to imply they easily could live over 500 years. If that's the case, and they're not being killed in mass quantities, then there are either thousands of them living among us or they have a very low birth rate. Really, either one is feasible, but I hope it's the latter. You see, Ruth is at least 20 years older than us, but her physical and mental development is closer to a 9-year-old. I was struck silent as he was explaining, but I couldn't resist cracking a joke. So she's what, Baby Yoda? I know you're kidding, but you're not far off. Some people were trying to track her down for research or to use her as a weapon, I'm not sure. Possibly they just wanted to eliminate a threat. Dad and Smiles got to her first. If she's what you said, how did they get her? Wouldn't she just rip them apart? Well, the way I understand it, she gave Smiles his scarf before Dad could calm her down. And Dad didn't get hurt? Is he normal? From what he told me, he's a normal human. For some reason, though, this supernatural stuff seems to have less of an effect on him. That is more common than you'd think, although his immunity seems to be almost complete. I don't think he's inhuman though. Well, what about the rest of us? If Ruth is adopted, are the rest of us? I have no clue about the rest of you, but I told you I'm not normal. I wasn't really adopted, though. I was normal and then I died. Dad won't tell me how I died, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ruth was involved. She was basically an only child before I was born, and she didn't like sharing attention. Ruth is a little unstable. She doesn't understand ethics yet, which is why I didn't want to bring her to Disney. I thought she was down there posing as me, but if so, then who's up here copying you? Okay. Let's say I believe you died. What, 5 minutes and then they resuscitated you? Oh, they resuscitated me all right, 2 years later in a different body. I'll tell you the story, but it's the last one. We need to get down to the basement. I died, and I don't remember anything that happened until I landed in this body. Dad tells me I started haunting the house, playing with my toys. I can only assume my death was traumatic because I don't think peacefully slipping off creates poltergeists. Dad went kind of crazy and tried to straight up Frankenstein's monster me a few times, but it didn't work. Ruth saw how upset Mom and Dad were and wanted to fix it. She snuck into the basement and found a creature that Dad had been having a hard time training. She used her abilities to make it into a replica of my body and copied whatever Dad had done to try to draw my spirit into it. It worked, but it took me a while to get control. I didn't start consciously thinking until a week after I was trapped in here. After that, it still wasn't easy. This body doesn't work like a normal body, even if it looks like it, and I'm not the only one here. The creature she used is still in here with me, and if I lose control, it gets it back. So what creature did she use? Is it really important? He blushed. I nodded, smirking. Have you ever heard of a cockatrice? It's what happens when a snake hatches a chicken's egg. I always knew you were a chicken. And I always knew you were an idiot, he laughed. Come on, we have to get going. Wait, what about me? Am I adopted? You were here by the time I was revived, so I can't be sure. I wouldn't worry, though. You're the spitting image of Dad. Also, that venom I pulled from you yesterday should have immediately killed you, but you just got some swelling. We cleaned up our breakfast and headed towards the office. The doorbell rang. Twice. 3 times. Who is ringing the doorbell at 2 a.m.? I asked him. Nobody. That's the security system trying to distract us. What the hell kind of security system was this? Oh. Okay, I guess I said, and followed him to the office. He cracked the door and I broke the salt line. You still can't see the basement door? He asked. Just wall. How about now? He asked as he mimed opening the door. Nope. Just try walking at it slowly. Once you pass through the threshold, you should be able to see, but it opens to the stairs, so don't just barge through. I walked into the wall, then turned to see my brother pulling a door open next to me. That's for calling me a chicken, asshat. He laughed. I had to laugh too. He got me fair and square. We were off to the basement. As we walked down the steps, the lights clicked on, and I realized that the basement was a misnomer. This place was more of an underground facility. There were computers and cages and massive aquariums. Most of the enclosures sat empty, but I could already see a few specimens. There was a creature in one tank that looked like a giant goldfish, but with arms. There was a man with eyes that looked like burning coals and emitted black puffs of smoke with each exhalation. There were 2 big fuzzy guys in adjacent enclosures that looked basically the same, but one had a brown coat and the other a white one. Their environments looked to be different as well. There was a creature that looked like a reptile in the shape of a human-sized fly. There was a man who looked entirely normal, just staring at me without blinking. There was a creature wearing a red mask and pants, with a blue, scaly body. It stood upright, but had arms that ended in hook shapes and 6 legs that ended in spikes. I wondered where he bought the pants. Near the base of the stairs, there was a security station Jerry was sitting at, flicking through camera views. He hit a button and the doorbell stopped ringing upstairs. A few minutes later, another Jerry came walking from somewhere in the basement. I freaked out and looked to the original Jerry, the OJ, if you will. Calm down. He's part of the security system too. New Jerry walked past me and took his place in a nook behind the OJ. I noticed now that my mom and dad were also in the nook, motionless. "How many of you are there running around here?" I shouted at him, laughing. Dad added me to his robot collection when we moved here during the pandemic. I'm not really sure why they have to look like us. It's kind of creepy. Satisfied with whatever he had seen on the cameras, Jerry got up and started walking through one of the aisles between the enclosures. I followed. "Stay close. Dad only keeps things in here that aren't safe to have loose on the property." I didn't see any breakouts, but be on your toes. I hope that didn't mean there were safe creatures running around upstairs too. We turned left once, right twice, and then I lost track. I was going to be trapped down here if I lost Jerry, in the most dangerous zoo in the world. We reached our destination, a plexiglass enclosure that had seen better days. A large hole was melted in the center, a bed inside was flipped on its side. A placard on the front read Ruth. "This is wrong." Jerry said the hole is burned from the outside. The lights cut out for a second, then a generator kicked in somewhere and emergency lights sprung into gear. I was looking at a grinning copy of me. It spoke in a quivering voice. "WW where Ch5 you taking her now, filth? I'm getting really sick of this, Jerry." I called out to my brother. "Ruth Hannah. We are your brothers." "Knock off me," snapped its head towards my brother, sniffing the air in a way that made my stomach turn. "Why you are all wrong." It raised its hand at him. TSK, WRWR wrong body, WRWR wrong tongue. "LL let's fix you." Jerry screamed. A firecracker sound popped off as he contorted unnaturally and fell to the ground in a heap. His scream turned to a gurgle as I stood frozen watching him. His left arm snapped up into the air as it elongated. His right arm joined it, pulling him up to his knees as if suspended by ropes, as his head lolled lifelessly forward. His skin flaked off like a reptile molting its skin. Underneath, forest green scales poked through. His hands were soon replaced by claws. His head snapped back and the screaming returned, this time in the guise of a screech an eagle might make. A beak tore through his face, which slipped to the floor with a wet squelch that sounded like a piece of lasagna falling off a plate. Two great wings shot out of his back. When his transformation was complete, he looked like a small dragon, about the size of a cow, with a big chicken head, complete with a waddle. Honestly, if the transformation hadn't been so horrifying, and the situation wasn't so dire, and he didn't look like he could have torn me into pieces with his chicken beak, I would have laughed. I think he sensed that, because his chicken eyes squinted at me. "TH, that's better," the trembling voice came, slightly more cheerful than earlier. My brother opened his chicken beak and screeched at her. He dug into lunge. The creature that looked like me must have decided that looking like me was not an advantage in a fight against a giant chicken dragon, and as he pounced, the form melted backwards and began to change. The creature's transformation was much smoother than my brother's. It seemed to turn into a squirming, gelatinous ball and begin to take shape again. My brother struck at the blob with his dragon tail, trying to catch it before it reformed. The blob squished in to dodge the swipe, and then two arms erupted from it to grab his tail. The creature now was a giant cyclops, although aside from the eye it looked almost like Gossamer from the Bugs Bunny cartoons. Its claws drew blood from my brother's tail, and as he tried to turn his head to snap, the cyclops moved its claws from his tail to his throat. My brother let out a horrified clucking sound and flapped his wings up to pull away. The creature transformed again, sprouting tentacles that reached out to anchor themselves to the bars of some nearby cages. The claws around my brother's throat became tentacles too, and two more joined them to haul him down. The eye of the cyclops had become the mouth of a kraken, looking to swallow my brother. Flailing in the air, my brother squawked again, and then spit a green fluid into the kraken's open mouth. The beast screamed and released my brother. It flopped backwards and tore one of the iron bars it had been latching from its cage. The squid shrank modestly and hurled the bar like a spear, piercing my brother's shoulder. I realized three things all at once. 1. I had been standing around, a normal dude, watching a chicken dragon fight a shape-shifting blob. 2. That shot wouldn't normally kill a chicken dragon, but if that bar was really iron, my brother was no longer in control of that beast. 3. I had no idea if that means my brother is dead for real this time. I needed to get out of there, but that last possibility crushed me. I know my extended stay away from home may seem like I don't have a great relationship with my family, but it's the opposite. Especially with Jerry. Jerry had been my cheerleader, my confidant, my best friend. He was the best big brother I could have asked for, and he proved it in this final act, fighting this creature to protect me. Jerry. I whimpered, and I began to sob. Jerry, no! I cried. The squid was morphing back into something else by now, but I didn't see it. I was on my knees wishing I could just take this back. I had to volunteer to watch the stupid house. If Mom and Dad had been here, this never would have happened. Jerry. A mournful echo ran out through the basement, but it wasn't from me. The creatures in the cages were mourning too. For Jerry? That seemed odd. I thought vaguely of the scene from that Pokemon movie where the Pokemon stop fighting their clones to cry and bring someone back to life. I don't think that was what was happening here. The blob creature was taking Jerry's human form and sobbing. Was this some form of mocking me? What the hell did this thing think it was? All that sorrow burned into anger in that moment, and the creatures in the room must have gone through the same process, because they started to roar. They were slamming against cage walls and hollering a storm. Fake Jerry must have noticed because he was looking at me now and he was pissed. Why you took her? Where is she? Oh. What the heck are you talking about? I shouted. It transformed into a blob again and I heard something drop to the floor. It was that freaking mirror again from my dad's desk. This time I'm sure I had left it in my parents' room. I went to step on it and be done with it once and for all, when the glass began to bulge. Fingers formed out of the glass and gripped the frame, and a humanoid figure too large for the little mirror began to pull itself out. Great. The last thing I needed was another creature to fight. I booked it down an aisle past some of the clamoring creatures, vowing to find and kill that blob once I knew how. Before I turned the corner, I looked back to see a man made out of the mirror fighting the changeling. I refused to call it a flesh sculptor, which had taken the form of a lion of some sort. I kept running and turning until I realized I was just going to die down here. I slumped on the ground to catch my breath and I heard pissed, this way. I snapped my head up to see Mr. Smiles peeking out from a turn up ahead and waving me on. Great. I didn't have anything better to do, so I meandered that way. Sure enough, around the corner I saw Smiles again at the end of the aisle waving. 3 more turns like that, and I saw a staircase. This wasn't the one we had come down, but I would take it. There was another security station by this stairway. There probably was one at each entry, if there were more than the 2 I had seen. I sat at the security station and clicked around. I found a good view and saw the shapeshifter still fighting the Mirror Man. The Mirror Man didn't actually show up on camera, but I assumed that was what was happening. He was putting up a good fight. I clicked around a bit more and found what I was looking for. I don't know what made me do it, but I hit release all. When it asked for the security pin, I took a shot and tried 7884. My mom had mentioned that number the other day, and I've been looking for a place to use it. Enclosures unlatched throughout the basement. Dad was going to be pissed. I got the heck out of there up the staircase. The staircase took me out of a bulkhead door on the far side of the guest house, past its farmland. It was still dark and I was outside, but I figured the most dangerous things would be about to come up that stairwell. I booked it towards the guest house and reached it in about 3 minutes of running. I kept on going past the house and onto the road between houses. I made it home a few minutes later and realized everything was locked up. I found a spare key under a potted plant and got inside, resetting the alarm. I ran through the house, into the office, and slammed the latch shut on the door to the basement. I completed the salt line, locked the office, and slid a sofa in front of the door for good measure. It was 5 a.m., time to feed the dogs. Ollie and Pork were in my room like good dogs, and after I fed them, I barricaded the door to my room and on a whim, opened my closet. There was a door in the back. I'm starting to remember. I barricaded the closet too, and then saw on Reddit that my previous post had gotten cut off when I copied it over. Thank you to the users who let me know about that. It creeped me out to think that I could have been finished in the basement and nobody would know what happened to me. I fixed that ASAP. I decided to feed the rest of the dogs so I could sleep. I should have been afraid of the creatures I had released, but somehow I knew they wouldn't be coming here, they wanted out. I guess I should warn you that if you're in Virginia, Tennessee, West Virginia, or the Carolinas, you may see some increased paranormal activity as these creatures return to their natural habitats. I cried myself to sleep and slept for about 8 hours. I woke up at 5 p.m. and wrote the update up to this point. I want to wrap up soon, but I just got off the phone with Sarah and wanted to share. I haven't been able to get a hold of you for days. What happened? I was just trying to enjoy my time with Mother and Father and did not want to spend it on the phone. Mother and Sarah Elizabeth, are you okay? A pause. I Mother and Father. Sarah Elizabeth. What? Phil? Phil, what's going on? Where dash? Mother and Father, say hello. Say hi to Jerry. The line disconnected. Earlier this evening I went to the off-limits shelf. I was pulling out books to check the covers, mostly folklore books, and I found a thick binder with the word classified stamped on top. The two eyes are dotted with googly eyes. I've started reading through it, but I don't have enough info to share here yet. One last thing. As I'm laying in my bed about to go to sleep, I can hear someone playing with toys in the room across the hall. Sleep tight, Jerry. Chapter 5. Now my brother is haunting me. I'm not going to lie, writing about everything that happened Friday took a lot out of me. I feel like I've been on edge all week, and what happened to Jerry was my breaking point. I almost didn't post it, and yesterday wasn't much better. A good night of rest rejuvenated me, though, and I decided to stay up after feeding Ollie and Pork to get this documented. The good news is that my parents are coming home tonight, so this nightmare should be coming to an end, one way or another, soon enough. I left off by telling you about the classified binder I had found. I spent a good amount of Friday night reading through the contents of the binder. An hour or two before midnight, I worked up the energy to write my last post, and around 2 a.m. I decided I should force myself to sleep to try to get my circadian rhythm back in line. My sleep schedule was thrown out of whack by the late-night basement trip that had robbed me of my brother, but despite not being tired, I was still exhausted. Sleep didn't take long. I read through the rest of the binder in the morning after taking care of the dogs. The binder was divided into sections. Each section had a number associated with it, and seemed to detail a specific creature. The first page of each section was a sort of cover sheet or intake form with information on what the creature was, how it was acquired, and whether it could be released. My dad was a tech guy, so this being on paper was surprisingly old school. It was also extremely inconvenient. If this had been in a database or, I don't know, even a Word doc, I would at least be able to search for keywords. Instead, I was stuck skimming each cover sheet to find cases that interested me. I jotted down the number of things that looked promising. 3539, a being that could travel through and manipulate mirrors. 4279, a carnivorous aquatic reptile that oddly resembles a goldfish. This one was more for personal curiosity. 5379, a chicken dragon possessed by a ghost. 7675, a creature that could erase or alter memories. 7884, a creature that could shapeshift. It's worth noting that there weren't 8,000 entries in the binder. The numbers were sorted incrementally, but seemed to jump at random intervals. I assumed it was a code or hash of some sort. There were plenty of others worth a look, but they didn't really seem relevant at the time. I really wanted to find something I didn't know already, but Jerry and Ruth's entries pretty much matched what Jerry had already told me. The only new information was that the NSA and DHS were on Ruth's trail when my dad somehow managed to beat them to her. The mirror creature had been captured in rural Pennsylvania. A couple had bought an historic house and found strange things happening with the mirrors, seeing things that weren't there, hands reaching out at them, items moving from one part of a house to another. Pretty scary stuff, but non-violent. The paper said that the situation escalated. My dad found out about it, and they captured the creature by breaking all of the mirrors in the house except one, then relocating that mirror here. The mirror creature had been cleared for socialization a week before I got here. Interesting stuff, but not very helpful. The memory-altering creature, however, was something I hadn't encountered yet. I knew from what Jerry told me that my memories were being messed with, but he hadn't said anything about how. This creature was described as a bearcat that could erase, alter, and prevent the formation of new memories. The file stated the creature was tame, but could not be returned to the wild as it seemed to be an invasive species. It has no natural predators on the North American continent and had hunted a forest to near extinction before being captured. The creature had been sold to a confidence man by an exotic species dealer who had neglected to mention the native habitat. The man had used the bearcat to conduct a crime spree that nobody remembered happening. At a bank robbery, he hadn't seen a clerk hiding under the desk and thus didn't wipe his memory. That clerk's account had somehow made it to my dad, who tracked down the con man. The con man claimed to have no idea what he was talking about, and it turns out he actually didn't. Somewhere between that bank robbery and when my dad finally tracked him down, the creature had opted out of the criminal partnership and wiped the man's memories. My dad found the creature by backtracking the man's steps until he found an area with reports of missing livestock and stolen desserts. I'm not sure what the last part meant, but it reminded me of kids snatching pies off of windowsills in old cartoons. I guess the creature has a sweet tooth. My dad finally caught the creature after a few days of forgetting why he was wandering around the woods and then finding a note in his pocket explaining the situation. I guess his immunity to the supernatural didn't count here. Finally, my dad figured out that the creature needed eye contact to erase memories, and managed to somehow catch it while blindfolded. Later on, he worked out that memories could be restored by again looking the creature in the eyes and saying "return my memories." There was a note that it didn't matter what language this was said in, but that it might be better to use an obscure language of doing this in public to avoid giving away the secret, and presumably to avoid questions about why you're yelling at a bearcat to return your memories. That could probably land you in a padded cell. My dad used this method on the con man to figure out where he had gotten the creature but was unable to find the dealer. My dad also restored enough memories of the con man's marks to get the guy thrown in jail. The newspapers named him the Bearcat Bandit. Even without the method to restore memory, it seems the memory wipe wasn't always permanent, particularly when strong emotions were involved or if the person was able to remind themselves some other way, like my dad's note in the woods. The wipes held up best when they were continuous and replaced one memory with another. For example, someone might be convinced a door doesn't exist because every time they see it, their memory of seeing a door is replaced by a memory of just seeing a wall instead. Well, that was enough to get the rest of my memories back if I could find a bearcat running around 40 acres of land and somehow now forget I had seen it. I jotted down "find bearcat," yell at it to give you back your memories, ask questions later on a paper and sign my name beneath it. I folded it in half and tucked it in my pocket. In all honesty, I was probably better off waiting for my dad to come back and yelling at him to give me my memories back. It was a bit after 10 a.m. when I finished reading through the binder, and I decided to check on my uncle. I hadn't heard anything from him since he had been brought to the hospital a few days ago. I decided I should call the hospital first. "Hi, I'm looking for information on a patient, Brian Wilkins. He came in with a head injury a few days ago. I'm his nephew." "Well, you're not a very good nephew. He checked himself out yesterday against medical advice. No calls or visits. He was in real rough shape when we got him." That seemed a bit unprofessional, but I let it slide. I should have checked up on him sooner, even with everything going on. "Oh, thank you." I hung up. I tried my uncle's cell this time. "Yeah. The robots try to kill you too?" He answered. "Not robots, no." "Where are you, Uncle Brian?" "Checked into a hotel in town. Figured you may still call me up for help. My asshole brother may have tried to kill me, but I won't hold that against you. Figured the other one would help you out though. Nobody told me he was going to stick around." "Who?" "Your brother." There was a pause between the words and the second came out harsh. "He tried to help me, but he isn't here anymore. Why don't you meet me in town for lunch?" "My treat, we can talk things out there. Old diner down off 29, Gyps." I agreed and made sure he was feeling up to it. He said he was and was looking forward to seeing me. With the change of plans, I had a few hours before I needed to head out to lunch. I decided to go sit in my brother's room for a while. I had heard activity in there the night before and I wanted to see if it was really him or if I had been imagining it. I walked in and there were two children's alphabet blocks sitting together on the ground facing the door. A small pile of blocks were stacked behind them. "H.I. Hi." I spoke out loud. "Jerry?" The block from the top of the stack behind toppled forward and rolled to sit next to the other two. "Hip?" I read. "What does that mean?" The original two blocks jiggled and flopped backwards. "Yep." "Well, that made a bit more sense. How do I know it's you?" A shudder ran through the room, and a crash came from the closet. The door jiggled. I went over and pulled the handle. A rubber chicken fell out and almost hit me in the face. "Ah, that's you all right," I said out loud. A block flew from the pile at my head. I ducked it and it cracked against the wall loud enough to sound like it would have hurt. "Whoa, careful, you could hurt me." Another block flew at me, and it barely missed me. "Are you mad at me?" "Why?" The block tower lifted up in the air and for a horrible second, I thought he was about to chuck the whole thing at me. It slammed back into the ground and blocks toppled through the room. From where I stood, I could see smiles and totem were spelled out. Another block flew at me. The closet door slammed behind me. The blocks all lifted again and bounced across the floor. What I saw didn't make any sense. The blocks couldn't have the letters for this to be spelled out. "She is coming" was in the center of the floor from my viewpoint. Around it were the rest of the blocks in groups of threes. Run, 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 run. One of the blocks flew at me and hit me in the shoulder. I looked back at the floor and the central message had been replaced by "Front door go. Run, you asshat." I heard coming from behind me, and I did. I booked it out, turned left down the half and skipped half the stairs on my way down. I grabbed my dad's truck keys off a hook by the door. I got out the front and locked the door behind me. I jumped off the porch and dashed out to the truck. This beater was old, but Dad kept it running, if not looking, in mint condition. I fired up the engine, bucked in, safety first, and looked up to see a normal-looking lady walking down the road from the guest house to the main house. I was kind of assuming that this was the creature Jerry fought in the basement because of his urgency upstairs. I had to draw her off of the house. The dogs were still there. The road to the guest house also served as the road past the guest house to the road. I considered my options for a second. One part of me wanted to try to run her down, but the fact that she might just be a normal lady trespassing on our property occurred to me. I also doubt that if she was up and walking around after her fight with Jerry and the Mirror Man, hitting her would do anything. Getting hit by a truck probably wasn't her secret weakness. I opted for off-roading it, which wasn't too bad in Dad's truck. The property at the front where the houses are is mostly cleared, and the ground is mostly level. I laid on the horn as I blew past the woman walking, in case I was being too stealthy, bouncing a rusted, old truck past her in the tall grass. The woman melted and rearranged herself. I lost track of her while she was doing this, but I quickly noticed the cheetah bounding along behind me in my rear view. I swerved off the lot onto the main road and gunned it. The cheetah was gaining on me in the grass, but if I could hit 70, I figured I had a good chance to keep my ground in it. I had read once that cheetahs are sprinters, but they don't have the endurance to keep up with their prey on the long haul. I didn't know if that still applied when the cheetah was actually a shapeshifter. It turns out that it didn't matter. I was pulling away from the cheetah and it actually dropped out of my rear view. I hooped a bit and slapped the side of the truck through an open window. Then I heard an engine roar, although, it turns out, minus the engine. I looked back and didn't see anything. Then I looked up and saw a freaking dragon. This one didn't have a chicken head, and was closer to the size of a house than a cow. I'm pretty sure dragons aren't real, and if they were, I don't think they would be physically capable of flying, but I guess physics and reality don't apply when you're a big scary monster that can do whatever you want. A jet of flame sprayed down in front of me on the road. I floored it again, and shot through. The hairs on my arms singed next to the open window. I manually cranked the window up and turned on the AC. The cab had heated up a bit, but the truck seemed to be holding together for now. A blast of fire in the wrong spot, though, would definitely explode the gas tank and I'd go up like I was in a Michael Bay movie. I wondered briefly if my dad had given the truck monster fighting abilities. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be a full-on transformer, but if he was driving around collecting creatures in this thing, it had to have something. I didn't do a full inspection, but I'm pretty sure it's just a normal truck. I had no way to fight a dragon, so running was my only option. I tried to think of something even remotely comparable. For some reason, I thought of an episode of Knight Rider where the Hoff was attacked by an Apache helicopter and managed to ground it with an EMP or something like that. Totally inapplicable, this truck is no kid, but it gave me another thought. When people are in car chases and trying to get away from a helicopter, they always get into a tunnel or something. There were no tunnels I knew of around here, but I was thinking maybe some tree cover. I threw out that idea pretty quickly. Trees are flammable. Only you can prevent forest fires. My last resort, then, was to try to make it to town. I wasn't entirely sure at the time that the creature wouldn't just slaughter the whole town to get me, but I had a feeling it wanted to avoid detection. Flying around looking like a dragon massacring villages is a solid way to attract attention. While I was lost in this train of thought, I had been swerving to avoid pillars of flames and was now going 105 down the highway. I didn't think a cop would pull me over for trying to escape a dragon. The dragon swooped towards the truck and clawed at the roof, fumbling to find a grip. The road turned and the dragon didn't turn fast enough. As it pulled up through some trees, it hit one and the tree split with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. I had a bit of breathing room and tried to milk it. I got back up into the triple digits, and the speedometer slowly worked its way up to 110. At this speed, it would only take me a few minutes to get to the edge of town. That presented another problem. I was more whirring down the road without a dragon in sight. I still couldn't see it and thought I might have given it the slip, but I didn't want to ease up on the gas. I agreed with myself to count to 10 and then slow down to 80. Still no dragon, everything was okay. I was just about into town when I was jolted by a thunk in the truck bed that shook the whole truck. I looked back, expecting a dragon, but I didn't see anything. I pulled into a Starbucks that looked reasonably populated, and decided to pass the time there until lunch. I got out and checked the truck bed. The woman from the house was laying down in the bed, smiling at me. She raised her arm towards me, as she had towards my brother, and my whole body tensed as I waited for her to turn me into a frog. Nothing happened. "WHY, what are you? She croaked. "Let's get a coffee." I heard from somewhere, then realized I had said it. She looked at me quizzically, and the question hung in the air for a few minutes until she replied. "Oh, okay." I'm not sure if anyone noticed the strange woman getting out of my truck bed. I hate to cut off the story here, but I have to take care of some things before heading to the airport tonight. I promise I'll fill you in on my conversations with the creature and my uncle as soon as I get a chance. Chapter 6. I arrived back in Dallas last night from a conference, the first annual Utopian Expo, outside of DC that I attended last week. Of course, that conference had to fall on the same week my whole family went to Disney. I was bummed I didn't get to meet my youngest niece. I had gotten to the luggage carousel before I realized my phone was still on airplane mode. I switched it off and stuck it back in my pocket. It buzzed. "Your post hit 100 upvotes," the notification from Reddit said. I don't normally post on Reddit, so this was strange. I opened up the app and saw a series of posts on r/nosleep talking about me house sitting for my parents. That was crazy because I haven't been home in 12 years. I don't have anything against my parents, but after I left for college, it never worked out that I went to see them. Also, who hacks someone's account to post on Reddit? I could understand spam, but these were posts that were getting interaction and upvotes. Free karma, I guess? I spent the Uber back to my apartment reading the first couple posts, and finished when I got upstairs. Honestly, it's crazy how believable they are, aside from the crazy ghost and monster stuff. Whoever did this had to know me and really intricate details of my life. They knew where my parents lived, my siblings, my uncle, even about Mr. Smiles, who I really try not to talk to people about for what should be obvious reasons. They knew the layout of my childhood home. Perhaps the weirdest of all, they know how I think. There were points in the story where I found myself knowing what it was going to say next before I read it. I don't know if it's scarier to me to think this story really happened, or if someone is able to basically read my mind. I clicked open my laptop and decided to Google the convention I was coming from. I typed in FO, the abbreviation for the conference, and the feeling I was being screwed with got a lot stronger. I decided to use the full name of the expo instead. I guess I was being paranoid, because first annual Utopian Expo was on the first page of results. I clicked through the pages and the website seemed legit, but the content wasn't making sense to me. Come see the ways people are striving for a better tomorrow. A banner read. What was this expo? Why would I pass up on a trip with my family for this? I had just spent a week there, but what had I done? I guess there have been other conferences I have come back from that just blur into ambiguous scenes of me sitting in a room being lectured about the next big thing in, insert conference topic here. Utopias though? The heck? I called Jerry. Hey Phil, how was your flight? Not bad. How was Disney? Oh, I couldn't go. I had a work thing. Oh. Hey, are you feeling alright? Never better, but hey, Christine is calling me to come help with the kids. I'll give you a call back soon. Alright. I love you, Ja. Love you too, asshat. He clicked off the call. Okay, Jerry was alright, so the story had to be lying, right? When I was unpacking my suitcase, I found a note scribbled in my handwriting that said, "Find the bearcat, tell it to give you back your memories, ask questions later," with my signature at the bottom. Bearcat had been crossed out, and something had been scribbled above it. Dork maybe? Not only had someone hacked my account, but they had slipped a note into my bag to try to reinforce the story. That means they had physical access to me as well. I went to lock my apartment door and almost decided to throw out the note, but I figured it would make good evidence if I needed to file a restraining order. I brought the note to a locked fireproof and waterproof box where I keep some important documents. I opened it and saw a manila folder with the word evidence written on the front. That seemed to fit, and I dropped the note in the folder. I was curious what other types of evidence I had collected, and flipped through the documents. There were a bunch of handwritten notes saying things like "it's pork" or "mom and dad" behind it, or "stay away from home" or "Rebecca." There was a Polaroid picture of a little fuzzy creature, maybe a bearcat, sitting on the porch of my childhood home. There was a photo of me and a beautiful woman I had never seen before. Someone had managed to break into my apartment and plant this in my locked box. I got worried that this may actually be a trick to keep me out of the way while my parents were robbed or something. I called my dad. Hey Dad, is everything okay out there? Yep, Disney was a blast. I'm worried about you and Mom. I think maybe it's time I come out there for a visit. He laughed. Yeah, son, it is about time. How long has it been? Must be 12 years now. Yes, that sounds about right. How about you come down next month? That'll give us some time to get things ready for you. We'll invite your siblings too. I'd like that. See you then, talk to you sooner. I was feeling a bit better when I happened to check my Google Drive. I say happened, but the Reddit posts were still bothering me. I use Google Docs to draft up papers for work, and it seemed like a place I would edit these before posting them. The other posts were there in a folder titled Strange, but there was one more that I think was meant to be the final entry. The file was called For Conversations. I am going to include the content from that file below. I'm not sure if I wrote it, but it seems to be the end of the story you've been reading. I thought I would have more time to write this, but as you'll read, today flew away from me, and there's one last thing I need to do. I left off at coffee with the creature. I could make a podcast with that title. We ordered. I got a vanilla latte, and she got that new tropical drink, which was unexpected. We sat at a table staring at each other for a few minutes, not really knowing what to say. She was a normal-looking person, brown hair, thin face. I might guess she works as a clerk in a convenience store if she hadn't just tried to murder me a few times. Do you look like this to avoid detection or something? THTH, this is how I look normally. Oh, awkward. It's UNCC comfortable to stay CHCH changed. A pause again. So you naturally stutter? That's why you don't fix that. She glared at me. I don't normally SPSP speak English. Hearing that somehow made sense to me. The stutter started to sound more like someone reading off of Google Translate, trying the sounds out before committing. Oddly, she didn't have a noticeable accent. A touch of a Valley Girl accent if anything. "You're very rude," she said after a time. "Sorry, I'm just not sure what to talk about." That wasn't the right thing to say. She stopped mid-sip and slammed her cup on the table. Why you don't can know what to TT talk about? How about my daughter?" She whispered so loud it was almost still a shout. The barista at the counter looked our way. "You're drawing attention. What about your daughter?" Shylin, you took her from me." "I don't know any Shylins dash." Shylin. "I don't know a Shylin. She was on that farm. ISS smelled her in that KK cage." Did she mean Ruth? That seemed to be the only explanation. On some level, I had assumed that this was Ruth, but the strange occurrences of the past week made a little more sense if there was someone else involved. "I think you mean my sister, Ruth, but I don't remember her." She is not your sister." "Right, well my dad adopted her. At least that's what my brother, Jerry, said. Before you killed him I tried not to let myself get too mad at that point, but suddenly I remembered who was sitting across from me. Your father stole her." She snapped, then continued as the rest of what I said sank in. "I killed? I didn't kill anything. You may as well have. You stabbed him with iron and forced out his soul, I think. To be honest, I'm not really sure how it works. That thing in the Pu prison? That was an abomination. You put it right. Yeah, well your daughter made him like that." I explained what Jerry had told me. Ruth probably killed him, Ruth made the body, and my dad had come up with some ritual to bind him to the body. Shylin must have been too weak to make a proper vessel. She went on to explain that it's easier for her species to change themselves than to manipulate other organic matter. The closer something is to another, the easier it is to change it. The creature, I guess I should ask her name, said she would have been able to create a body out of a tree or another plant, but Ruth must have needed the major organ systems intact. That also explained Jerry's remaining abilities with poison. I briefly wondered if that meant my nephews were half chicken dragon. "So you could bring Jerry back?" I interrupted her, suddenly excited. "Why would I? You killed him. You owe us." "I didn't kill him, and why you took my daughter?" I tried to explain what I knew from Ruth's file. I don't think my dad knew that Ruth had a mother or behavioral patterns of her species. He saw a creature in need and tried to help it. I explained how the enclosures in the basement she had called the prison were to protect my family and the other creatures from hostile creatures with unstable abilities. She explained that it was her fault that she and Ruth had been discovered. She would transform into funny creatures to entertain Ruth as a child, and one day she had been seen by a neighbor. That neighbor had called the cops, but the incident appeared to have been going nowhere because I saw my neighbor transform into a platypus isn't usually taken at face value. The mother had decided to relocate anyway, under the guise of being enraged that she had been targeted by her neighbor because she was a single mother. She didn't think anything had come of it, but the NSA had been figuratively knocking at her door within a month. The day Ruth was either kidnapped or rescued by my father, depending on your perspective, her mother had been out fighting off government agents near their home when my dad showed up. I think I must have gotten through to her, because the rage she had shown while hunting me down had visibility dissipated. I could tell that hearing her side of the story was building some rapport between us. Ruth dash. Shylin. Shylin is with my parents right now. They will be back soon. If I agree to get my dad to talk to you, will you help me bring back Jerry? I'm sure if he hears your story, he'll want you to have your daughter back. I don't know anything about go ghosts, Bob, but I can make a body. That would have to do. I'll figure out how to get him into the body. If you meet me back at the house tomorrow afternoon, we can do the ritual and you can stick around to wait for me to pick my parents up from the airport. I'll be able to talk to them about you before we get home, so they're not caught off guard. She agreed, and we parted ways peacefully. Time had gotten away from me and I was already running late to lunch with Uncle Brian. I called him on the ride over to let him know I was still going, and he said he was running late too actually. I ended up getting there first. The diner was an unassuming building with a metal roof, a few Harleys outside, and a blue door. It hardly looked like a diner, and the sign on the door that said 21 and up after 8 p.m. ended up giving the place the vibe of a biker bar rather than a diner. I grabbed a table, ordered a Pepsi, and waited for my uncle. When he got there, it didn't take long for the conversation to take a turn for the worse. "Phil. Man, what has it been 4 years since I seen you? Had to be the last time your folks asked me to help you watch the place." My uncle was a big guy, but more bulky than fat, that smelled of cigarettes and had a mostly gray beard down to his chest. I would bet money his bike was now parked out front next to the others. Whereas my dad had a slight southern accent he tried to conceal, my uncle had embraced his accent and nurtured it into a full drawl. They grew up in the South, maybe Georgia. Neither talked about childhood too much. My uncle lives in northern Georgia now. The important thing here is that it had been nearly 15 years since I had seen Brian at my grandfather's funeral. You must be thinking of Jerry or Zeke. I haven't been back here since college. Bahaha, my uncle booked you down here at least twice a year. I guess you at least got a break during COVID. What are you talking about? I told Paul he should stop this crap with the memories. Glad to hear he's still not listening to me. Well, I guess I should tell you again not to order the pot roast, you usually like the Reuben. I didn't like where this was heading, but I did order the Reuben and did like it. My uncle ordered the pot roast. Let's just say I'm glad I didn't. You're telling me that my parents just have me watch their house and then wipe my memory. That's about the size of it. Usually they get that thing they call your brother to supervise or leave it to the tin cans. Why would they do that? Why do you have your memories? No clue, but knowing my brother, he's experimenting on you or something. I still have the scars from when we were kids. He took a sip of Sierra Mist. As for the memories, I just keep away from the little fuzzy guy he uses to wipe the memories. How do you know all this? You've seen the bear cat? You would know 10 times more than me if you had your memories. As for the fuzzy guy, I'm sure you've seen him too. They let him right in the house with y'all. Treat him like a dog. Call him Pork. He laughed. He is a little chunker. My mind was swimming. I could ask him so much more, but I knew the best answers would be from my own memories. I knew how to find the bearcat now, and I knew how to get my memory back when I did. We let the conversation shift to normal stuff, his bike, work, and a brief foray into politics that we quickly dropped before getting in an argument. Whatever happened between you and my dad? He sighed. Well, do you know about Jerry? What he is? I nodded, not correcting his tense to was. I disagreed with your parents bringing that creature into your home, even before Jerry was born. It was too dangerous. They really built their whole compound because of that thing. When Jerry passed, I blamed Paul. When the haunting started, I wanted to try to send him on, let him find peace. Your dad wanted him back. I don't blame him, but he got into some dark places. I've never seen him like that before or since. The way he wanted him back, it wouldn't be Jerry. Eventually I found out that creature had managed to turn Jerry into a creature too, and my brother had him locked up like an animal. Well, I broke into his little basement lab and tried to get Jerry out. I'm not proud to say I still considered putting him down, but when I saw the kid back I couldn't do it. Your father removed my security access that day and only puts it back when I'm there looking out for you. You're my only real nephew left. He knows I can't let you run around that place unprotected, so I come running like his little lapdog whenever he calls me and tells me you'll be staying. There was a lot to unpack there, but one thing had caught my attention. What do you mean I'm your only real nephew? Well, there was Jerry, but he's something else now. There's you, the spitting image of my brother. Then there's 3 little creatures those 2 decided to adopt. Zeke and Sarah? He nodded, but offered no further explanation. I filled Brian in on the events of the past few days, and what I was going to do when I got home. I let him know about the Reddit posts. He was hesitant to let me come back alone, but he looked like a mess. I guess I didn't mention it earlier, but he had a black eye, a bandage wrapped around his head, and one of his arms was splinted. He still looked like he could kick my ass into next week, but he might injure himself in the process. I told him it's better for me to do the next steps alone, but that he should follow the Reddit updates and that I would call him if things went sideways. He covered the tab, and we left. I saw him hop on his bike, a cherry red 72 Norton Commando he had restored himself as I pulled off in the truck. I took a pit stop to grab dinner for later and headed back to the house. I parked and went in the front door, ready to find Pork and get my memories back. Pork was standing on the stairs making eye contact with me. Crap, I said, and then I blanked out. Obviously, I am writing about this, so spoiler alert, I got my memories back, but pretty recently. From what I can tell, Pork mostly just erased my memory that he was a memory-altering bearcat. I think he may have also removed the memory of my uncle telling me I had been here before. Having my memories now, it's hard to remember what I didn't remember before I remembered. I definitely did remember that I needed to bring Jerry back. I considered going into his room again, but my shoulder was still hurting from the block hitting me earlier. Anyway, I think he had given me a hint already. The blocks had red smiles for a minute there. It was getting late, so I worked through the routine for the dogs and went to bed a bit early. I woke up this morning and wrote my last post. I'm sorry I had to cut things off, but I had no idea what a Jerry resurrection ritual would entail. Turns out, it's a good thing I left early. I ate a breakfast feast of toast and butter before heading out of the house in the direction of the family cemetery. At some point, my dad had decided cemeteries were scams and had an acre of our interior land consecrated. Most of the construction or farmland on the property was towards the boundaries to keep the interior land natural, though there were still footpaths through the property. The cemetery was an exception. In a natural clearing in the woods of the property, there were a handful of headstones. There was a mausoleum that was hopefully still empty a few yards from the tombstones, and there was a large wall with plaques and photos near the tree line. There were very few people buried here, although a few more than there should be apparently. Those people were marked with tombstones. There were many animals buried in this area and the surrounding forest. Some I had buried as a kid, usually planting something on top to mark the grave. The wall served as a general memorial for the animals, each marked with a plaque and photo. The mausoleum was nothing extraordinary, just a small cement building, in which my parents would be entombed. This is strange for them, as I imagine they would prefer a return my nutrients to the earth approach, but my dad had an irrational fear of being accidentally burned and or buried alive, hence mausoleum. He told me once that he wouldn't mind being moved into the ground after he's been dead a year or two. There was a little bench off the footpath by the tombstones. The cemetery was at least 2 miles from the house, so the bench was a nice place to rest. When my grandfather was buried here, there had to be 2 sets of pallbearers so nobody got too tired. Everyone was panting when we got here. I scanned the tombstones in the tall grass, and it wasn't hard to find what I was looking for. Both of my grandfathers, one of my grandmothers, someone named Rebecca, and Mr. Smiles. Etched in it beneath a pair of googly eyes and a plastic mouth that had been glued to the tombstone. The eyes seemed to peer out from the tall grass. Kind of garish if you ask me. I hadn't asked anyone. The voice came from the bench behind me. Mr. Smiles sat on the bench. Rather, Randall Schmidt sat on the bench, with no trace of his haphazard mockery of a clown suit. I thought he might be alive for a moment, but the wood of the bench was faintly visible through his chest. Mr. Schmidt? In the flesh he laughed. Why are you haunting me? That's not a generous interpretation. I tried to warn you about Ruth. I broke you out of your dream cycle. I helped you escape the basement. Hell, you're here to ask for my help. Haunting? You've been terrifying me in dreams. I don't get to choose how you interpret what I'm sending you in your dream. You want to blame someone, blame your own mind. Frankly, I'm offended. His head twisted around 360 degrees. When he faced me again, he wore the goggles and plastic mouth. What's so scary about Mr. Smiles? He asked in his high-pitched cartoon voice. See, that's terrifying. Please stop that. I said, keeping myself from peeing my pants. He shook his head furiously, and when he stopped he was back to normal. You liked it better when you were a kid. Go ahead and ask what you came for. Jerry. How can he come back? You can repeat the ritual your dad taught Ruth. You just need his totem, a suitable vessel, and the blood of a sibling. The what? Calm down, not a lot of blood. What you have in your socks should be enough. When he said that, I noticed for the first time my sock was wet, and the dull stinging in my foot had become a sharp pain. My wound from the piece of glass had reopened when I was running from Ruth's mom the day before, and I guess it had opened again at some point in my 2-mile hike. I sat next to him on the bench. What's the ritual? It will be easier if you just let me do it. Plus, I know about your web posts, and I'm not about to let you publish a ritual for forcing a ghost into a living body online. How would you do it? Well, in much the same way we will bring back Jerry. We'll put a ghost in a living being. Mr. Smiles directed me to the guest house to collect his original googly eye goggles and plastic mouth from a drawer in one of the closets. He told me Jerry's totem used in the original ritual was a puka shell necklace that could be found in his luggage. The totem was what kept Jerry's soul bound as a ghost, and even when in his body he had to keep it close. His connection to his body weakened as he got farther away from the necklace. Presumably he would have worn it either if he was a preteen surfer boy or if it weren't a puka shell necklace. The goggles and lips were Mr. Smiles' totems, and would allow him to possess me, as long as I was willing, without a ritual. I met Ruth's mother at the house, where she was swinging in the porch swing. I wish I could say more about the ritual, but basically, Ruth's mom made a body out of an old oak tree. We carried it up to Jerry's room and put it in his bed, with the puka shell necklace on. I shoved my bloody sock in its mouth. I put the goggles on, and blacked out. When I came to, it was getting dark and I was laying out the couch downstairs. I don't know where the goggles went. Jerry is upstairs in bed breathing, but still appears to be asleep. I thought at the time maybe my memories had been wiped, but now they're all back and I still don't know what happened. Ruth's mom had left, I think, before we started, not wanting to be involved with the next part. I got ready, typed up my conversations with Ruth's mom and my uncle, which I had to go back and edit with my memories restored, and took off for the airport to get my parents. My dad called me while I was waiting in the cell lot. This was the first audio contact I had with my family since the weird call with Sarah the other night, but my dad had texted me to confirm flight times earlier today. Considering that, my dad seemed pretty nonchalant as he told me the carousel number to pick them up at. I drove over and, of course, had to loop around again when they weren't outside, but they were there on the second pass. My dad drove back, and a few minutes into the drive, after discussing Disney and the grandkids, he said, "Well, this time was a mess, huh? Between your mother sneaking Ruth on the trip and you trying to release Armageddon, this has to be one of the worst attempts on record." I didn't speak for a minute. There was a lot to process. He continued, "Why in the hell would you release all those critters? They weren't ready." He glared at me in the rear view. "It's a long story. It's a long drive." I told him the story up to this point, at least what I remembered. Most of it didn't surprise him. "You managed to bring Jerry back again? You convinced the Fleischbildhauerin?" he asked. "I hope he's back. He's sleeping in the room upstairs. And she is waiting for us back home?" He glanced at my mother. "Yes, she wants to get Ruth back." "Okay, we'll handle her. Anyway, I'm glad to hear you open the pens in a state of emergency. You may have even believed you were saving them from a monster, the word monster having audible air quotes around it when Calero told me. I thought it was another one of your acts of rebellion." "Who is Calero?" "Good friend of mine. I asked him to take his team and keep an eye on you. Because of their early alarm, we were able to get most of the animals rounded up within the first 12 hours with minimal casualties. There are stragglers, but it could be much worse." He paused. "I take back what I said earlier, this may have been one of the most successful attempts yet. Honestly, I think part of me had released the animals as revenge on my dad for not telling me about them. I had panicked, but even right after, I was thinking about how mad he would be. I didn't tell him this though. I wasn't happy to hear there had been casualties, and I didn't know if they were humans or creatures. I don't think there's a difference to my dad." "You keep saying that, what are you talking about? And you had someone spying on me?" "Well, son, I want you to take over the rescue business for me. I'm getting a bit old for new acquisitions, and I want to train you up while I still can. I'll be honest with you, we've tried this before and you've been unreceptive, even destructive, but this time you seem to be stepping up. We had to wipe your memories of those times and try again. All those trips you've been taking for the past decade or so, Paris, London, New York, well, they were actually right at home. You wiped my memories? I have pictures from those trips. Photoshopped. We even deep-faked a video of you in Times Square one time. You don't think it's strange you never heard from any of the people you met on those trips again? You're insane. How can you do that to me? Why wouldn't you just find someone else? You're my son, biologically, and you've inherited my immunities. Anyone else would be dead in a week. Calero's team was only able to get any of those creatures back because your mother had already conditioned them, and even then one of them died in the process. Dad, this is insane. Why would I have turned you down to begin with? We usually get to this part of the conversation, one way or another. We've been wiping your memory since you were a kid. We kept you in a containment cell for a while, and you felt betrayed, which I can tell that you feel now. You've been manipulating me my whole life, and you think betrayal covers what I'm feeling? I'm confused, pissed. How am I supposed to dash? 1, 2, 3, cut me off and started counting. I felt frozen, the emotions sapping out of me. Baby, can you get him under control? I'm driving tired already. I don't need the emotional overload. She smiled softly and turned to face me. Honey, I need you to sit quietly for the ride, stay calm, and when we get home, go up to your room and stay there while we deal with the creature. She turned back to my dad. Ruthie is our daughter now, we'll protect her. Yes, Mommy, my mouth said, but I didn't have control of it anymore. I was a passenger in my brain. You're right, son, but the rules apply to you too. I can't let you hurt the other creatures. You're still in an enclosure. Yours is just a bit bigger." We rode in silence the rest of the way. When we got home, my body walked up the stairs to my room and locked the door. At that point, control flowed back into me, and I tried to open the door and go warn Ruth's mother. When I put my hand on the doorknob, I lost control again, and my body backed away from the door before I was in control again. I slouched to the ground and leaned against my bed. Pork came over to me and licked my face. I closed my eyes and counted to 10 to try to get my composure back. I opened my eyes and saw a bearcat staring at me. "Give me back my memories." I almost yelled. They came back. Years of memories, dating back to childhood, like my dad said. Too many to write, but I knew now why I had refused him. I had a fiancée, Rebecca, who had come with me to a Thanksgiving at this house. One of my dad's newly released creatures must not have been fully ready. Rebecca was murdered, and my dad had buried her right next to where Smiles is buried. I had seen the tombstone earlier today and not known who she was. I presume he must have done something to keep the police from questioning me about her disappearance, and I wondered if her family even remembered that she existed. The memories came flooding in all at once. Our first date, the way she brushed her hair to the side when she smiled at me, a road trip we had taken to a couple of the national parks in Niagara Falls, proposing to her, losing her, and even worse, forgetting her. I would have guessed that this would feel like watching a movie. Sad, but as if it happened to someone else. The emotions were complete, however, sharpened by years of being unable to mourn or grieve. I was sobbing, and I have been writing this through years in anger so there can be a record of what happened. There had been other times I had been here, and when I regained this memory, I had gone full villain. I had tried to kill some of these monsters, and had succeeded. I had once tried to burn the place to the ground. I had figured out I have the ability to project my emotions, probably some untrained version of my mother's ability, and had used it to set one of Dad's teams loose on a rage-fueled rampage in the basement. I had blown up the security robots, which then had just looked like robots, which presumably gave my dad the idea to make them look like family members. I had become a monster, something to fear. I am about to do it again. I still can't leave the room through my bedroom door, but there's another way out. The door in the closet is calling my name, and it's time I got my revenge. That was all for today. Glad you guys listened till the end. Don't forget to like the video and share with your friends. Also send in your own scary stories at horroxperiencemedia@gmail.com, so your work can get featured in my videos. You can find a link in the description. Subscribe for more similar stories, and see you guys in the next video.